Hello, and welcome to Thriving in the Age of Disruption. Today, Dr. Ramesh meets with Mr. Samuel Tan, the CEO of All Saints Home, a social service agency that provides professional elder care services to the aged of all backgrounds, many of whom are from low-income families or destitute. The message that Samuel has for those of us who want a happy and meaningful life is a deep one. How do we want to live our lives? How do we end life well? As he enters his 50s, Samuel realized it was time for him to plan how he was going to end his career. And after some soul-searching, the high flyer in the financial insurance sector made the shift from corporate work to servant leadership in a social enterprise.
Hello, Samuel. Welcome to the Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast series. I'm so excited to catch up with you. We last met some 30 years ago as graduate students in Melbourne. I think we were both at Monash University doing our MBA, and it must have been 1991, 1992.
Yeah, 91 to 93.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Indeed, it's a great joy to be reconnected with you after such a long time. I always have fond memories of our time at Richardson's Hall, if you remember. Time has just passed so fast.
Samuel, what I'd like you to do right now is to do an introduction of yourself.
I'm now currently the CEO of a nursing home in Singapore. It's called All Saints Home. We run 4 nursing homes and 3 senior care centers all over Singapore. We have 700 residents and 500 clients from our daycare centers. Altogether, we have 600 staff from 11 nationalities. We joined All Saints Home just before the COVID-19 pandemic in November 2019. Prior to that, I spent about 30 years in the insurance and reinsurance industry. So I worked for 3 companies, and the last one was a German insurance company. I was there for 23 years. So that's my career history. And in terms of education, I first degree in business administration, and then I did my MBA from Monash.
That's really interesting that you made the shift from corporate work in the financial insurance sector to what I would call as a social enterprise, and specifically into a segment of healthcare. You take care of nursing and daycare centers for the community. You're managing a large group of people as well. What was the motivation around that move?
I'm 59 years old this year.
You don't look it.
When I reached my 50th birthday, I was doing a lot of soul searching about what I wanted to do with my life. Because having been in the corporate world for quite some time, I thought it's time for me to plan how I was going to end my career. At the time, I had the opportunity to volunteer in some charities. So I was board member of a school and of community services institution, of a community hospital. So I wasn't new to the charity sector, but it was very different being a board member as compared to being a worker on the ground. I was thinking of a career change at the time. Okay, there were a few possibilities. One was to change a career, go to something new, or possibly to something non-profit. I was also contemplating perhaps going to study music, which is my passion. I have always been interested in music. I was also contemplating going to study theology. Another option was to continue with my employer then, but perhaps go to another country, switch into another position, a different department. But most of the opportunity didn't materialize, right? So whatever you want to do, there must be opportunities. So nothing happened. Okay, but then when I reached my 55th birthday, 5 years later, there was an opportunity that came along. I was approached by a headhunter that a nursing home was looking for a CEO. And they asked me whether I would be interested to be considered. Yeah, so I thought that was a prayer answered. I just took up the invitation to go for the interview. When I learned that the nursing home was All Saints Home, I was quite in favor of moving to All Saints Home. So I studied about the organization's vision and mission. I also consulted with my wife. And then we started this discussion. And actually, everything happened quite fast. We met in June 2019, and then by August, I made my decision, and then I decided to leave my last employer, an organization which I always feel very proud of, but I felt that it was time for me to move on to do something that is closer to my heart. Yes.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing your journey. What I heard from those self-reflection that you had is that you had questions about how am I going to end my career? And should I pursue my passion? Or even at a deeper level itself, the question was, how can I contribute? Or what should be my legacy? Those are all very important questions for us to consider. Then the second thing that also struck me was the fact that sometimes we need to wait for the right opportunity to come. Because we may want to do something right now, but if the opportunity is not here, then we just have to stay put. And the third piece that I got from our conversation was how you actually created having the buy-in from the key stakeholders for the big change that you were going to make from moving from being a corporate high flyer to someone who was going to play an equally important role, but in the social services sector. That included getting the buy-in from your family, getting the buy-in from your old organization, as well as for yourself, being at peace that you fulfill whatever that you wanted to do in your old role in the financial insurance business. That's a very important piece because we often don't realize how much we need to say goodbyes before we can say hello to a new opportunity. So I have a question for you now. How did you really think at this level that you had to get this buy-in from all these people? Is it because by nature you are a thoughtful and patient person? Or is it something that you learned along the way?
Well, I think that there are a combination of reasons. I always enjoy taking up challenges, working with people, solving problems. And I put a lot of emphasis on the purpose and meaning of my life. That's very important. When I was doing that, like I was influenced by a book that I read and a seminar that I attended by the author. The book was called Finishing Well. It was written by Dr. David Wong. He compartmentalized our life into 7 days a week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and all the way to Saturday. So you assume that when you're born is day zero, right? Then each day is 10 years. Assuming the normal lifespan is 70 years, anything above 70 is a bonus, right? So if I compartmentalize my life, I'm now actually towards the end of Friday and I'm going to start Saturday. And by the time I reach Sunday, that is almost the end already. If you look at your life in this way, life is actually very short, right? So how do you want to live your life? And I kept asking myself that question. And I told myself, yes, I must be determined to want to end my life well.
Mm.
And I'm sure amongst us, among the listeners as well, many people have started life maybe not so well. Okay, but the encouragement is that you can end well. And even if you start well, you may end badly. So you have to make sure
That's
you
right.
end well. Right. And I was fortunate to have many people give me good advice. So in my life, I have many wise counsels, advisors, friends, or elders who are willing to help me. One of them is actually my spouse, my wife, who is a doctor herself, who is also involved in community care. When I wanted to join the nursing home, I think she was the best person to seek advice from. And I also found it quite interesting because when we got married, I was a business graduate working in a reinsurance company. And at the time, she's a junior medical officer. So two people from very diverse background coming together, although we were united by our common faith and also our interest in music. But that is quite interesting that after almost 30 years, our path actually converged. We are both working in the community sector, she as a doctor and me as a CEO.
That's right.
Also, in considering the career change, I must share something quite interesting. It's a confession, actually. I had a very interesting career with 3 different companies doing different functions. So I really enjoyed what I was doing. But one little regret is that I didn't have a chance to run a company. My last job, I was a regional head of a function for Asia Pacific. I did pray about this whole thing. I said, give me the opportunity to be a CEO. Interestingly, this prayer was answered. I got a chance to become a CEO.
Yes.
Okay. But not in an insurance company, but in a nursing home.
That's
Right.
right.
So I became a CEO with a lower pay. I'm not complaining about that. It's sufficient, but
Yes.
lower pay, but without the trappings of status symbols. Many people associate being a CEO with a lot of perks: company car, business trust travels, golf memberships, and so on.
That's
But I don't have all these things. So in fact, I'm grateful that this move, All Saints Home, has also helped me to become level-headed, to be rooted. My clients or my customers now, they are not people who we wine and dine in posh restaurants. These are people who are vulnerable, who are sickly, who are poor, who need our help.
That's right.
Very appreciative of this setting that I'm put under because it helps me to be level-headed.
Wow, it's been a very profound journey that you've taken to go back to the root of who you are. The next conversation that I want to start with you is between having an entrepreneurial mindset to actually being an entrepreneur. Someone with an entrepreneurial mindset is someone who is being resourceful. And essentially, that means that when you come up with a problem, A, you define what the actual problem is so that you get to work solving the right problem. B, you're able to manage risk and see you create value, not just for yourself, but also for others. And it could be beyond just financial value. It could be other kinds of value. On the other hand, everyone dreams about being an entrepreneur because they think that entrepreneurs make a lot of money. Like you said, most of us look at the trappings of being an entrepreneur, at least the celebrated aspects of private jets and billions of dollars and the power. But then it's a hard toil. I think an entrepreneurial mindset actually allows us to navigate this world of disruption today. What do you see about the entrepreneurial mindset that you can now reflect back to the audience in your journey?
When I was younger, whenever this topic is being discussed, the topic of entrepreneurship, most of the time I will associate that with doing business and making money. Like when you see someone being an entrepreneur and we have awards as entrepreneur of the year who can transform business and make lots and lots of money, right? Feed the shareholders well. For me, I've never done my own business before, right? I think maybe I'm a bit too risk averse to use my own money to invest. Although I do invest my own money from stocks and shares. And I come from a family where my father used to run a small business. But then having gone through the hardship of running a business, like he kept telling me, please don't do your own business. And he did. And discouraged me from taking over his business. Said, please get a degree and then get a nice salary and work for someone. The advice I always got from my dad.
Yes.
Now, on hindsight, I don't think I would be someone who would be gifted enough to invest my own money and then try to grow a big business. But entrepreneurial mindset, I look at it more as stewardship, how you practice stewardship. And so when you are given something, let's say even you work for someone, you are given a budget, you are given resources to build on something, how you protect that and how you grow that and how you add value. I always feel that even when you are a salaried employee, you should always take the resources given to you as if they are your own resources. If you always think that this is not my money, this is my boss's money, and then you tend to have a lower duty of care, and then I don't think that's very good, right? So for me, it's all about stewardship, making the best use of the resources, whether it's money, whether it's human capital, facilities, how you grow that, and how you turn that into greater value.
I really like how you have used the stewardship to describe the entrepreneurial mindset, because I can totally see the duty of care in terms of growing, protecting, and adding value. And also the other aspect, which is how do you make the best use of the available resources? And that is the key point that some of the entrepreneurs in the good times, especially with a lot of venture fund being available, might have missed, because you may not have those resources. You're depending on raising money. But if you didn't, then what would be the best use of your resources? And that will have you look at how to run the business very differently from how people have run it in the hope that they will raise millions of dollars.
For instance, in my kind of business, which is the nursing home operation, what are we going to achieve now in the long term? Our target is not to make tons of money. In fact, our target is just to break even. We're a non-profit organization. We shouldn't be making too much money, but we should run in such a way that we break even, we are sustainable, right, in the long term.
That's also an important piece, that we find for ourselves the appropriate measures. Because if you're a nonprofit and in an area where you need to provide the relevant service to the people who can't afford it, and you want to give them quality care, so then you want to make sure that it's not going to be overly profitable, but actually more towards the break even and at the same time sustainable for the long run. I define crisis as a setback that we experience at some point because we don't do anything about the setback. What happens is that it snowballs and it comes to a crisis point whereby if you don't take an action, you're going to face a life and death situation. At this point, it'll be very difficult for us to have clarity of thought in terms of what actions we have to take. And often people will say that you have to build certain practices, whether it's meditation or whether it is to have already existing support structure earlier in your life when things were not in a crisis mode, because then you can leverage on it at that point. So Samuel, what's your own personal experience in dealing with a crisis?
Well, I joined All Saints Home just before the pandemic. I joined as a CEO designator. So I was very fortunate to have my predecessor who spent 6 weeks to guide me as much as he could. I'm always very thankful to him. Then I took over as CEO officially on the 1st of January. 2020, and I was still a greenhorn, right? So I had no experience in the healthcare sector, totally new to nursing home. And then suddenly, a few weeks later, if you remember, that was the first day of Chinese New Year.
Yes,
It was DORSCON yellow,
that's right.
right? Then by the last day of Chinese New Year, still in January, then we were DORSCON orange. So then that time people started to get a bit anxious. And that time we still called the virus Wuhan virus. That it was wasn't called COVID-19. We started to find out more and we still didn't have to wear masks and all that. But then later on, things started to develop more intensely and then situation got worse, right? And so now if we think back what happened 2.5 years ago, the situation has improved a lot. Okay, today we have vaccines, we have swab,
Yes.
test kits are everywhere. We have got ample supply of masks, but that wasn't the case in the earlier part of 2020. So it was really, really scary. Then what happened was that when the government announced a circuit breaker, so that was the time when the whole country went into high level of vigilance.
Yes.
And then in my nursing home, we did everything we could to protect our residents and staff. At the time, our knowledge of COVID-19 was still very limited. Right. So we took guidance from Ministry of Health. We did everything we could. But unfortunately, April, one of my nursing homes had the first case
Wow.
of COVID-19.
Right.
Like nowadays, you get 1,000 cases a day is nothing, right?
Yes.
That time you get one case, it was considered a death sentence.
That's right.
So the next day, the newspaper will flash your big news about the nursing home, right? So it was a very stressful time for all of us. So even for the staff, everyone was nervous. I still remember the day when I got the news that we had the first COVID case in one of my centers. Of course, I was a bit anxious, right? But then I thought I was surprisingly calm about the whole thing because I told myself, what else could I do? I also was mindful that I had so many staff looking up to me for leadership. Because the management team and then the rest of the staff. So I think first thing I told myself that I couldn't panic, right? I can't panic. I just have to just stay calm. We call for a virtual meeting and then we discuss the next steps, what to do. And then, of course, the Ministry of Health people from Agency for Integrated Care, MOH, they got in touch with us and then we discuss what to do next, right? So step by step. The first lesson I learned from crisis management, stay calm.
That's right.
Just stay calm, don't panic, because the minute you panic, then you will make stupid decisions. This was very useful because when I was calm, then my staff, they were also fine, right? They were all steady and then we just took things step by step. You got to be very patient step by step. When you have a crisis, you have to rally the team together to support one another. And I was so touched by my staff. This was a big crisis that we went through together and everyone just chipped in to help. That I remember that day people had to work long hours. Then we send teams to come and swap all the staff, all the residents, disinfect the whole place. A lot of things to do. And in fact, the entire surveillance period was about a month. Then all the contact tracing, you just want to make sure you find out all the people who have been affected, right? Then you quarantine the staff, you send them to quarantine centers, and then we were short of staff. And we were very fortunate because we also had fellow nursing homes to send people to come to help us. This is a wonderful thing about my sector, right? I don't think we will do that in the insurance sector. Here in our healthcare sector, they'll help one another. Right. And we had also contributed to other nursing homes as well because there were some other nursing homes that had COVID cases. We sent people there to help them. It's so nice that this kindness is being spread around throughout this COVID period.
That's right.
So that was my first experience with crisis management. And then following that, then you had the Delta variant, right? Delta variant was quite powerful. So one of my centers, this time it wasn't one case, it was like close to 20 cases. And that was, again, very, very stressful. But again, because we had gone through this COVID management before, we know the drills, then all the staff just came alongside together and then we just went through this. After that, we had got various incidents of clusters and all that, but then we just practiced all the drills.
That's right. As a leader, what you have reflected for us is that sometimes we may have our own concerns, our own feelings and stress. But if we are cognizant of the fact that there are other people who are looking for guidance and for direction from us, then it falls on us to stay calm and to provide that leadership because that's the only thing that we can provide. And then as we take the actions like what you did, then you'll find that people will just rally together and they'll move forward. But if we as leaders panic and we start blaming, then it becomes a big mess. So thank you for sharing that whole journey of managing a crisis within the nursing home itself and how you dealt with that very powerfully. So do you think that people can do any sort of a daily practice that can also help them to stay calm in a crisis? Is there anything that you do?
At first, you do not know when the crisis will happen, right? But I thought we had to maintain a mental state whereby whatever happens, you can take it.
Some people talk about how they practice meditation or mindfulness or take long walks and have a support structure. And essentially, it is a way to create space between you and that crisis situation so that you can think and you can take other action rather than be in the turmoil of that crisis itself. When you look back, what were the activities or practices that you're already doing? Because it obviously was one of those things that helped you to stay calm and move forward.
Okay, how I manage this is that first is my faith. I have a faith that I can anchor on. I pray and I read the Bible.
Yes.
So I know that whatever happens, okay, even in darkest days, the most severe crisis, I know that there's God whom I can cling on to. That is very comforting for me. Then I'm also blessed with people whom I can share my burden with. So on the one hand, I can stay calm, but we are all humans, right? There must be outlet for you to share the burden. So I think my wife is a very good partner. She always have a listening ear. She's a very resilient person. I mean, she can listen and then she can help me process and share the burden with me.
Right.
And I've got friends, and even among my management team colleagues, many of them are really wonderful. They are always there willing to share the burden and willing to support. And that helps me a lot. Also in my previous job in insurance, right? Insurance is also a very uncertain kind of business because you can make lots of money, but claims can come a big natural hazard. So at the time, I was also always wondering every day what's going to happen. We read the news, there's a hurricane, there's an earthquake somewhere, there's an explosion somewhere, right?
Yes.
But we just have to tell ourselves what is the worst thing that can happen, right? And then we know that certain things are beyond our control. Yeah, then we just have to just surrender ourselves. But there's certain things that we can do, then we do our best. That's all we can do. I think recognizing our own limitations and also being willing to make ourselves vulnerable and get help.
Thank you for pointing out all the other things as well that we can take on doing when we are stuck in a setback. Because sometimes even to ask for help or to talk to people seems to be very difficult because we feel ashamed or we worry about losing face. But actually, those are the times when we need to rely on our support structure. What is spirituality for you, as well as where are you in your spiritual journey?
I think spirituality for me is what you understand by eternity. So do you think that life is just something finite we live in this world and then everything ends? Or you think that there's eternity? For me, I'm a Christian. So I believe that there is a creator, and I believe that we are all created with a special purpose by God in his image. And one day we will die. Then after we die, there is eternal life. I also understand that I'm not just someone who just happened by chance, right? I'm created with a purpose, and I'm loved by the creator who protects me all the time. So to me, that is spirituality, a meaning of life. Yeah.
Okay, great. And do you think it is possible for us to live a simple life in today's world?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, tell me more.
One thing I found quite interesting, I came from the financial services, then I moved on to the community care sector, to a charity, right?
Yes.
When I first joined, I was shocked by the difference in the compensation level in the private sector and especially financial services versus the community care sector. I work in an industry whereby people normally complain that they were making too little money. But then if you compare with what they are earning with what their counterparts in the community care sector is getting, I mean, it's really a big, big difference. And mind you, in my sector, we're talking about doctors, we're talking about nurses, rehab specialists, medical social workers, and even the corporate functions like HR, IT, accounting, and so on. I was also quite pleasantly surprised when I found some of my colleagues in the corporate departments, right? In terms of quality, they could easily work in the private sector and maybe earn so much more money. But these people in my sector, they seem to be very contented with what they have. In the private sector, people may say that, oh, if I earn this few $1,000, I cannot survive. But here, there are many people who earn the kind of salary and they are still surviving.
Yes.
Yeah. Then if I look at myself, I would say that over the years, my lifestyle actually hasn't changed very much. So I've always been a salaried employee, but then you talk about what I like to eat, what I like to do, actually it hasn't changed very much. I will occasionally indulge myself in more expensive food in restaurants with my family members and friends. But most of the time, I still prefer the kopitiam and hawker center kind of food, right? I'm still okay with that. I have my own car, and I'm not driving, and I'm still okay with that. Yeah. So my encouragement to younger people always that if you want to become richer, actually it's quite simple. You just have to make sure that you save money. Right?
That's right.
Less that you earn, then you definitely you'll make money. For me, I would invest in a nice holiday, with the family. I believe in buying a property in the long term that you can stay and also have got the capital appreciation value. So I think in Singapore, of course, now cost of living has gone up a lot, but there is still a possibility for us to live simply. So it's a matter of choice. What do you want to do with your money?
That's right. Well, I love that. So actually living simply is a matter of choice. You're spot on. And it will require us to make the trade-offs. And that is the key thing, right? We have to make those choices.
You have to have the confidence to make the choice because we are living in a society where we have got a lot of social pressure.
Yes.
Right. If you're driving a certain type of car, people say, oh, we are in this position, we should be driving a bigger car. Or why are you eating in this kind of low-class restaurants? You have to be confident in doing what you like to do, right? And you think is the right thing to do. Don't be pressurized by people to conform to what they think you should do.
So it is make choices, be confident, and don't need to conform.
Yes.
So long as that's what you want to do. Excellent. If you had to use 3 words to describe thriving, what would those 3 words be?
Wow. Okay. At first, I think would be resilience, the ability to withstand hard knocks and the never say die attitude and keep moving on. The second point I would think would be joy. Okay. Whatever you do with joy. And then the third word I would use would be satisfaction. Yeah. Resilience, joy, and satisfaction.
Wonderful. People talk about sustainability, and I wanted to understand what is your understanding about sustainability and how does it show up in your workplace, in your life?
Okay, sustainability, I mean, normally we refer to the 3 areas of environmental, social, and governmental areas, right?
Yes.
These are the 3 areas. Maybe I talk about the social side. So interestingly, my job, our full-time job is actually to address this S part.
That's
so
right.
ESG, right? We are dealing with some challenges of society. In our case, we look after the aged, the vulnerable, the sick. And I'm so grateful that I'm just given this full-time job to do this as much as I can. And some of the other social issues, like maybe giving people the second chance, people from the Yellow Ribbon program, the ex-prisoners, and also people with special needs. This is something we do quite consciously within our organization. So every center we do hire people with diverse background and we give people a second chance. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to steer that.
Right. That's an important aspect of sustainability because most people usually will associate sustainability with the climate crisis as well as the depletion of natural resources. But the definition that I also adopt for sustainability is the ongoing thriving of a living system. Every human being is a living system. Today, a lot of societies are coming to a crisis point with the aging population. And even in Singapore, that's an issue, not just from taking care of them, as in their physical aspects of their care, but also their mental well-being, because it's a transition for them from being someone who was independent and in charge of their life to a point where they now don't have that control or the capacity to be able to do that. Is that also an area that you are dealing with in your nursing homes? And what do you see about that?
In fact, what you have just mentioned is the core of what we call our model of care.
Oh, okay, great.
We are actually going through a corporate planning exercise as well. And there's a working group that is looking into how we can make our model of care much more effective. We are talking about the physical aspect, how to care for their daily needs, right? And the social cycle aspect.
Right.
And then finally, the spiritual aspect. There are so many things that we can do. And these are really cross-functional initiatives that we have to implement. This is, in fact, the core of what we offer here.
If you look at this whole sector catering to the group of people who are aging, what's the challenge? What's the social issue right now that we're dealing with?
The social issue right now is that we'll have more and more people who are seniors. The proportion will increase dramatically in the coming years. Our government is well aware of this challenge. Also, with this longer lifespan that people can live, this population health initiative is to ensure that everyone age healthily. A lot of programs to engage the seniors, right?
Yes.
And then you just have to take care of your health. We want to strengthen also the primary care. So your GPs will play a greater role in helping you to keep yourselves healthy. The thing now is that we will have more and more seniors. So the burden also on the younger generation will become heavier and heavier. Now, not all families will be able to afford, let's say, so many of my residents come to our nursing home, they are from low-income families. They won't have the means of hiring their own maids, and the children, we have other commitments, they can look after them.
Yes.
Right. So they have no choice. They have to come to the nursing home. And in fact, most of them are maybe subsidized by the government, or they are drawing on the Medifund, which is a social welfare fund that is administered by MOH. I always told people that, okay, nursing home, while we try to provide as good a service as possible, it should be a place of last resort. So if you have got other options, okay, if you could have your family members taking care of you, please do that. You can have domestic helpers at home. Please try that. Or you could have a home medical service, home nursing
Right.
service. Some people are sick, they stay at home. You can get the doctors and nurses to come to visit you. Because I think most of the Asian people would prefer to age at home. I think very few people will say, I volunteer, I'll come to nursing home, right? Unless you don't have a home. In fact, in our nursing home, we have destitutes as well. People who are homeless, so they are assigned to our nursing homes. We take them in. But I think most people, I've spoken to some of the CS in my centers, and many of them, if they have a choice, they want to go home. It's quite difficult for them. Sometimes it's due to their medical condition, where the family members will not be able to take care of. So I tell people, keep yourself as healthy as possible. And then when you're in a position where you need to have care, try to be cared for at home as much as possible.
Wonderful. Samuel, thank you so much for this really open and candid discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Dr. Ramesh and Samuel today. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation, where Samuel shares his journey to heed this inner calling to lead with purpose and meaning. If you're inspired and interested to learn more about the entrepreneurial mindset, check out Dr. Ramesh's book, The Big Jump into Entrepreneurship 2.0. Simply click on the Amazon link provided in the podcast description. We're thrilled to have you join us for Season 1, where over 40 episodes we've explored topics such as the entrepreneurial mindset, crisis resilience, leadership, family business, and sustainability, and your thoughts around what it means to be spiritual, simple, and to thrive in life. So a big thank you for all your support. And now, as we gear up for Season 2, Dr. Ramesh invites you to continue on this journey with us. In the upcoming season, we'll dive deeper into personal and professional development, share inspiring stories, and provide the inspiration and actionable tips to help you thrive in the age of disruption. Be sure to follow Dr. Ramesh on LinkedIn so that you'll get the latest insights from her and our amazing community of change makers. We look forward to having you tune in to Season 2 of Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast with Dr. RameshRamachandra.